May is a horror comedy that's written and directed by Lucky McKee and stars Angela Bettis. So, May is a $50 patron request that comes from Perry, and most of y'all know him as Jesus Perez on YouTube. If you guys follow him on Letterboxd, his name is The Cinema Savant. So, I'll make sure to leave a link to his Letterboxd down below. Most of you who follow this channel know who Perry is, and know that he is one of my best friends, and that I appreciate that guy so much. I love that guy to death. His last patron request was for Brick, and I really disliked that film. I mean, there were a few things about it that I enjoyed, but most of it was quite a chore to get through. I have a whole review for that if you want to check that out. I'll put that at the end screen of this video. I kind of got some shit for that because almost nobody really agreed with me. But that's the price of being an honest critic. Sometimes you're going to give a hot take, and you're just going to have to take a lot of hot shit afterwards. But obviously this time, he requested that I review May, and I really like this film a lot, and I thoroughly enjoyed this from start to finish. And this is a film that came out in the early 2000s. I believe it came out in 2002. And that is kind of apparent when it comes to this film's soundtrack and score. And honestly, it didn't really bother me. Like, even though this film screams the early 2000s, I think it added quite a lot to the whole charm of this film. There are a few moments where it was a little bit overbearing, but overall, I thought it actually worked in this film's advantage. And it's one of those films that even though it is kind of stuck in an era, I don't really think it holds the film back at all. But before going into this film, I had heard from not only Perry, but from a lot of other people that this is an extremely disturbing film. And to some people, it is one of the more disturbing films that they've ever seen. So I kind of went in with that mindset, and I was kind of surprised to see that this film was making me laugh a lot. And it's not because it was bad or cheesy, it's because there's a lot of intentional, awkward comedy in this film that just really works. Honestly, for the first two acts of this film, I was like, okay, when is the actually, disturbing shit gonna actually kick into overdrive? Because for the first two acts, I was like, okay, yeah, there's some really unsettling moments here and there, but overall, I thought it was just a really well-executed horror comedy that also has, honestly, an amazing performance from Angela Bettis. And I'd never seen this actress in anything, or really even heard of her. So when I saw her first come on screen, I was like, okay, I've never seen her. She's in the lead role, so let's just see how this goes. And she was honestly pretty incredible in this film, because the character that she has to portray in this is actually quite difficult, because her character, to call her quirky is an understatement, because she just has this really bizarre and disturbed personality. And, it's edgy, but she's not really trying to be edgy. That is just who she is as a person, which is why the edginess in this film, especially when it comes to her character, really works. Because there are certain films where the main character has this edginess to him, but it just comes off really annoying and entitled and spoiled. But here that's not the case. Here you truly buy her weirdness and her quirkiness. Because with this character, she has to portray these little details that are kind of consistent throughout the film. Whether it's just the way that she moves her hands awkwardly in a way that she's unsure what to do with them, which is kind of what I do when I'm reviewing. I kind of move my hands all over the place. But also just the way that she holds eye contact, or lack thereof, and everything just from her body language and the way that she delivers her dialogue. Everything had to be portrayed in a certain way in order for this character to work. And I thought that she really embodied it incredibly well. And honestly, it's one of my more favorite film characters, especially in horror, that I can think of, because it's just so strange and out there. and I thought was incredibly well portrayed. Anna Faris is also in this film, which kind of took me by surprise, but in a way it didn't, because this film is kind of a horror comedy. And, you know, she's in a lot of just spook horror films, and she always plays like just the dumb blonde or just the dumb woman type of character. And in here, she plays just like the shameless, horny girl, which is also something that, you know, she's kind of used to playing. But she does it really well. But what I like so much about this main character is that, in the same vein as a character like Joker, she's kind of like pushed to the edge in this film. She's somebody that, yes, even though she is kind of bizarre in the head and isn't quite right, she doesn't have all the screws tightened very well, she's definitely somebody that is just kind of constantly being pushed to the edge of insanity. And I like that about this character, because it allows you to kind of not like sympathize with what happens in this film, but allows you to kind of understand somebody who eventually just has enough. And I like films that kind of go down that route, because it makes it a bit more substantive and makes it more of like an insightful character study. So, as I mentioned, the first two acts of this are more of like a horror comedy with a few unsettling moments. Then the third act essentially turns just straight disturbing horror. I don't know if it's like one of the most disturbing films I've ever seen, but it's definitely off-putting, and there are certainly some disturbing moments that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. And just the entire concept of the obsession that her character has and how it's executed in the third act, and especially in the ending, I thought was really something to behold, and was something that gave it a really satisfying payoff and a really satisfying ending, even though it's obviously twisted and really grotesque. It was the third act where I was like, okay, this is why people call it one of the more disturbing films that they've ever seen. And the actual ending to this film, like the last few seconds or so of this film, just put a smile on my face in the weirdest way, because I thought it took a really bold artistic decision, and I think that it oddly worked and it paid off incredibly well. And I could see some people coming out of it being like, you know, come on, like that's really dumb, that's going too far, that's just far-fetched. But for me, I liked the way it was handled, because it didn't go so far with it, and it was handled with finesse, and it was definitely an ending that I thoroughly enjoyed and was really impressed by. Because it also ends with something that is meaningful to the character and just to one of the film's themes in general regarding loneliness and being outcasted. But there is one moment in this film where this one character just kind of goes in and out of the film really quickly, like in the matter of minutes. And it's like when the third act just starts to begin. And it basically serves as a way for the third act to be initiated. And honestly, like, I really wasn't a huge fan of it, because this character that just kind of goes in and out of the film, I just call him the Juju Bean guy, and for those who have seen the film know what I'm talking about. But he just seemed like a plot device, and is obviously only there to kind of spark the fire that happens in the third act. And it didn't come off very natural, and was just one of the few aspects of the film that kind of took me out and I really wasn't that impressed by. But overall, I was really impressed by this film, and I think it's kind of a shame that not very many people really know about this film, because it's perfect for spooky season. Like, this is a genuinely great film to watch during Halloween, especially knowing that it's kind of been swept under the rug. So I'm going to give May an 8.5 out of 10. I obviously highly recommend this film. This is a film that I definitely want to own a copy of on Blu-ray, and it's something that has a lot of rewatch value. Like, this is something that I'm definitely going to try to be watching every Halloween season. But either way, that's all I got to say about May. This weekend, I'm going to be putting out my 15 most traumatizing films I've ever seen. That's a video that I've been really anticipating, and I hope you guys have been too. So I'm really excited to get that video out to you guys. But Either way, that's all I got to say about May. So if you really enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.